Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I got a little bit of a longer video for you today. I'm going to be processing this osage orange tree that's all tangled up in a bunch of cedars and hanging over my fence and looming over my backyard privacy hedge and causing everything to be choked out. So I'm going to pull this thing down with a ski rope, which makes a great handle to hold on to and pull on nice and sturdy. Just something that I started doing because I have a bunch of ski ropes around, extra ones. But the first order of business is to get a fire started because it is about 28 degrees this morning, and this will give me something to throw all my debris into and all the bark and everything, burn that, and also kind of keep me warm, give me something to do. And I'm burning that wood that I cut a month or so ago, that nasty rotten log that was laying on the ground, and it's drying out really fast, and this stuff lights right up and burns. So it's going a lot faster than I thought it was. It might not even be around by next fall if I keep burning it in the fire pit. But we'll get this fire going, and then we'll get out here and take a look at this osage orange tree and see what's going on with it. Thanks for watching. And here it is. You can see the lean to it. And this is going way out over my fence and hanging up in my cedar trees. My cedar trees just aren't looking very good the last year or two. They're kind of spindly, and they should be getting plenty of sun. They're on the edge of the forest, but they're being choked out by this thing, and they're not getting sun. But you can see the lean. I'm trying to show it. I mean, it's kind of leaning in 2 or 3 different directions. I mean, it bows out into the left of your screen there, and then comes way over into my cedar trees, and you can see how far the tips of those branches go into my cedar tree, and you can see how it kind of goes left and towards the camera and then back to the right. So I was going to try to pull it straight towards the camera into that gap right there, and just kind of, if it fell on my fence, whatever, I was just like, what, it doesn't matter, it falls on the fence. It already had a cherry tree fall, and you can see it's missing some slats and everything. I just haven't got around to fixing my fence yet, since the cherry tree fell on it, and I'm gonna have to buy some wood or take some from another part of the fence. But anyways, that's a whole different deal. I'm not really worried about the fence. It's kind of getting old. So I was thinking about pulling it straight towards the camera, but it just wouldn't have worked. I mean, it's too hung up in the tree tops, and there's other branches in the way. It's kind of hard to tell, but when you get under it and look at it, it's just, if I would have tried to pull it straight forwards, it would have gotten all hung up. And I mean, it ends up getting hung up anyways. But what I decided to do instead was basically kind of pull it sideways to the left, how it kind of bows to the left. So, to the left of your screen is where I'm going to pull it. And right now I'm throwing the rope up there, and it takes me about 50 times to get the rope in this little, angled branch, wide off little crotch section to where I can pull it. So I throw this thing over and over and over, and it's heavy, and I wear out my shoulder a little bit. But anyways, I finally get it here, and I may speed the video up, but that's my plan of attack. Is I'm gonna get a rope on it and try to pull it straight to the left of the screen, and kind of try to pull it back and away from the cedar trees, and also to the left, and see if I can kind of just get it to drop down in that little hole without crashing on my fence too hard, at least the heaviest part of the tree. But this is hopefully going to be really good for my cedar trees. And then that other little tree that is right in the center of the screen in front of my fence, that's an oak tree, and it's growing basically sideways instead of up. So hopefully it opens up some sunlight for that tree too, because that was a pretty little tree and it's growing all funky now. It's growing two big branches like straight out into my yard, and it's not growing a nice even rounded full canopy. So I'd like for that thing to shape up a little bit. I don't know if it will, but I also hope, like I said a minute ago, that my cedar trees get more sunlight and they get all this weight off of them, and hopefully they fill in, because they do end up taking a little bit of a crash throughout this process. And the branches that, this Osage orange tree lands in the top of it, and it's heavy. It's heavy wood, and I'm sure that was stressful on all those branches, but hopefully if it opens up, they'll start growing back up towards the sun, and trees can kind of heal themselves, and hopefully it'll kind of bush in a little bit better. Because, I mean, look how spindly they're looking. I mean, I swear they were looking a lot thicker and fuller and healthier 3 years ago, and they're just not looking great anymore. So I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're not really turning brown or anything. They're just not thick and really dense and green anymore. They're just kind of spindly. But anyways, hopefully this helps them out. If not, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I'd like for them to live a long time and be nice and bushy and full. So if you're watching, I am just back there throwing this thing till my heart's content. And I'm starting to get frustrated because it's like you got to nail this little crotch, and there's branches that run right over top of it and all around it. So if you throw it a foot too high, it wraps around the wrong branches, and I'm just having a hard time getting it right in the little crook that I need to be in, or nook, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just throwing and throwing and throwing. But eventually I get it. So let me maybe speed up the video here and see what happens. Okay, so finally I hit the right little part of the tree that I needed to be in, and now I'm just walking the rope out to the left side of the screen and getting it all set up to where I can get to it easily, and it's stretched out to its fullest potential, and it's all ready to go. So here is a kind of a close-up of it hanging in the tree. You'll have to look close. I think I zoom in on it here, but you'll be able to see the rock kind of hanging wedged, stuck in there. And that thing holds, actually. I don't really have to wrap it around or anything. I mean, I know you can do tricks and wrap it around, wrap a loop into the rope and do stuff, but I mean, then you can't use the handle of the ski rope. So I like having that handle to hold on to pull the trees, and you don't have to have rope wrapped around your hand and everything. But so there it is, I got it, and now I'm gonna go and start cutting this thing down. I also want to mention that I'm doing the best I can with trying to find the best angle for this shot. I don't really have multiple cameras right now to get close-ups and far-out views and everything. I only have one camera to work with, basically. So, I mean, I could have went and got it real close and showed me cutting the tree, but then you wouldn't have been able to see the big picture, and all you would have seen is like the stump, and you wouldn't have seen the tree fall or anything. So I know this is kind of a far out view, and the fence is in the way, but I think you can see the tree better, and me pulling it and everything from this view here than just being close up. I mean, because the ski rope is 50 feet out to the left anyways. But I'm going ahead and making my undercut, and I do a Humboldt style on this, and I'm using my saw to line up. I mean, if you're familiar with how golf works, it's similar to how a golf stance, the ball goes where your feet are pointed in a line, and the same thing with a chainsaw. So if you get your saw set in a tree when you're making your undercut, you can follow the lines of the saw and see a line of sight and look straight out and see where the tree's going to fall, hopefully. And that's what I'm doing during this. I'm trying to line it up and get it to go straight left because it kind of leans left and over that way and then into my yard. So I'm trying to just kind of get it to go straight left because, I mean, if I pull it straight back, there's just branches. It's hard to tell from here, but you can't pull that thing straight back, and there's so much weight looming out over that I was afraid I'm going to lose my hinge wood. I mean, if I tried to pull it straight backwards against all of that weight, it would just, I mean, if you get close, it'll just snap and fall, and that's a lot of weight. So I was afraid that it would kind of get away from me if I tried to pull it, directly backwards. But I thought I could get away with it going sideways because it kind of goes that way. So that's what I'm doing. And I make my undercut and try to leave some holding wood. So I make my undercut and then I make my back cut, and I try to leave, 3 or 4 inches of holding wood. And you kind of got to get the tree. That's kind of the trick with using a rope to pull the tree. And this, you'll see in a minute, it doesn't really go as planned on the main cut. But I'm showing everything in all honesty and full disclosure. You gotta get it right on the edge of where it's just ready to fall. I mean, if it kind of cracks and moves a little, then you need to stop and then go try to, pull on it with a rope and rock it back and forth, and hopefully that holding wood will snap, and you can help to pull it in the direction that you want it to go. I mean, that's the idea. But I have to admit, as careful as I was trying to be, my holding wood ends up getting away from me a little bit. And one side of the tree, I took too much on one side. But it wasn't the end of the world because it was the right side if you were going to take too much. But you really got to, I mean, it's experience basically to know where your saw is exactly in that tree and how much holding wood you have left. And I was trying, it was on my mind, but here's my first pull. I cut it and left, 3 or 4 inches, and the tree moved a little bit, so I stopped. But I went over there and grabbed the ski rope and started tugging on it, and it was just solid. It wasn't moving. So I come back and I get the saw, and I'm going to kind of tickle it a little bit more, and remove a little bit more holding wood and pull on it again. You can see the tree moving a little bit when I'm making that cut, and I just can't believe that I can't get it to go. I thought for sure that like now it would go. I mean, you can see it moving, and you can see it moving when I was using the chainsaw, and it even pulls even further. I mean, you can see how loose it is. I thought it was going to go, and it would have been a big help with this rope to pull it out of that cedar and backwards a little bit when it falls, and you'll see in a minute what ends up happening. But it didn't go 100% perfect with the ski rope first pull. Now I do end up using the rope to get the tree out of the canopy, and this usually works really good. I've taken trees out. I took birch trees out that were growing all around my house, over my roof and everything like this, and it worked like a charm. This tree is big and heavy, and it's tangled up, and it's got a nasty lean to it, so like I said, I think my holding wood kind of got away from me, and it ends up popping. I mean, it just snaps and ends up falling here in a minute, so I don't really get to pull the whole tree down like I wanted to. But you will see that the ski rope does come in handy here in a minute. And so here I go again for a third try after taking more holding wood out, and I still can't get it to go. And I'm really kind of amazed because when they're all cut up and you start pulling on it and they're rocking, that's a lot of weight, and this thing is still holding. And then the next cut, you'll see, I barely touch it. I mean, I was like, okay, well, I gotta do it. I gotta make another cut, do it again. And I mean, I barely touch the holding wood, and it just snaps and falls. But so that's coming right up. I know it sounds like I'm doing a lot of cutting and a lot of work right there, but that's because I took a wedge out of the backside of the tree to kind of just open it up and show me a clean view of the holding wood. I was trying to be delicate with it and make sure I could really see it well. So I had to make an extra cut, but I'm getting ready to touch the holding wood in a minute. So there it went, and I wasn't able to pull it with the ski rope as far as the whole tree, but the good news is it didn't completely trash my fence. If it would have completely landed on that fence, it would have just totally busted it and broke the whole thing apart. So it's resting up in the canopy up over my fence, and that gives me the opportunity to cut this thing up and get it away from the fence without having the full weight of the tree on my fence, which is good. So it's not a total loss, and you will see me use the ski rope 2 or 3 more times because the top of that tree is tangled up in the cedar pretty bad, and it's way up there. I mean, it goes up there 30, 35 feet high. I mean, I can't even get on the ladder and get that high. With a pole saw, if I had to the very top of it. It's way up there, so you got to use a rope to just kind of pull it out of there and slide it out of the canopy, and that's coming up here in a minute. But I make some cuts on this thing here right now and start just, taking cuts out of the trunk, dropping it down, and just start whittling away at it. Yeah, this is going to take just a minute because there's a lot of limbing to do here, just to kind of clean it up and get it all out from around my feet and make sure I can get in there and work on it. And also, these Osage orange trees have thorns on them, so all of those limbs and smaller branches and brush have thorns all over them. And I want to make sure I get them out of the way carefully and methodically so I'm not all tangled up in it. And when these things fall and twist, I mean, because you can see how crooked and everything it grows. So when you drop it and it falls and twists, and a big old limby, branch comes whipping around and hits you in the face, and it has thorns on it, that doesn't feel good. So I wanted to make sure I got all the limbs out of the way as much as possible in a nice, secure fashion. So I methodically just kind of make sure I take all the little thorny limbs out, and that's what takes so long in between cuts. I mean, there's a lot of that. There's just a lot of limbing and thinking and stuff going on in this video, so I'll try to speed up some of it. But this part here is part of the major cut of the tree, so I'll leave this one. And I'm also trying to make these cuts on the trunk. Every cut that I make, I'm trying to make sure that when the tree falls and swings down and hits the ground, that it's going to hit the ground and not the fence. So, I mean, if you just went and just made, stupid cuts and went, right up at shoulder length, then that whole tree is going to swing around like a pendulum and still just crash into the fence. So I'm trying to just walk it down real methodically and keep it out of the fence and let it just hang up in the canopy. And as it gets smaller and smaller, it gets easier and easier to work with. So you just kind of keep taking it apart like a puzzle. So like right here, I decided to go high now because when that tree drops, it'll swing over the fence, and I mean the bottom part of it might kind of crash the fence a little bit, but the bulk of the tree will swing and miss the fence because I'm up high over it now. So that worked. My poor cedar trees. I really wanted to keep those trees and have them in good condition, like just for like a nice privacy hedgerow there. And I'm just disappointed they're not looking good, and they just got totally crunched today. But like I said, hopefully they heal themselves and maybe they'll bush up in the coming years. I don't know what's going on with them. I'm not an arborist. Right now, I'm just kind of gathering up a bunch of debris to throw on my fire for the fire pit because it has been raging this whole time and is burning out. So I just picked up a bunch of smaller stuff to go throw on my fire pit fire and keep it going. That's all that was. Alright, so it's time to use the ski rope again. This section that's leaning up against that tree is a lot taller than you can really see. I mean, it goes all the way off the screen on the top of the camera. So I hook my ski rope in here with my rock weight, just kind of lob it up into a little crotch area, and I'm going to use it to pull this thing out of the tree. I think that went pretty well. Here's a look at everything I've got cut up so far. That is the bottom of the trunk and the stump, but you can see here I still have quite a large problem. That is all tangled up there and locked up in the branches. So out comes the ski rope again, and I'm just finding a nice secure place to get this thing wedged up in there, and hopefully I'm going to be able to pull a large part of this treetop out of the canopy of those cedar trees. And you can see the backside of those cedars. There's no leaves on them at all, or needles or whatever they have on the backside of the shady side. So hopefully this really opens it up and those things can start to thrive, because I'm kind of worried about them. I'd like them to do better than they're doing. I mean, they look terrible. But here we go with a nice pull, and let's see what happens here with this treetop. It did slide out a little bit right there, but you can't really see from the camera. The top of the tree is just entangled in that cedar, and it's just in kind of a perfect little section that it's just locked up and you can't move it. Now that the tree slid down a little bit, a few more feet, I'm able to remove some more weight out of the trunk wood on the bottom here. I have access to this trunk, so I go ahead and take a few cuts out of this heavy trunk wood and lighten it up and make it more manageable. Well, that was productive. like I said a minute ago, it's really entangled up there, and it's just hooked around a perfect little branch. I mean, it's growing all crooked, and it's just right in a crotch and hooked in there to where you can't pull it out. So I got the ski rope on it, but it's just so locked up. I take my pole saw here, and I'm thinking about how I want to do this, because if you just start cutting away, then you'll be left with the very top of that tree will be still stuck up in the cedar. So I had to sit there and think for a minute about where I wanted to cut it, because if you need to leave space. So, like, you need to leave like a crotch or a branch area in case you needed to throw a rope up on it. You can have something to snag onto and pull it. And if you just go ahead and cut the bottom of those branches off, then the rest of the Osage orange tree is just going to be resting up in those cedar trees, 20, 30 feet up in the air. So I was just thinking about exactly where I wanted to cut the branch to where I could get it to slide, and I could also not leave the rest of the treetop stuck up there. And that worked to get that out. Here's what I'm left with, and you can see it is kind of a perfect little V shape. So I left myself something to where I can throw that rope up in there and grab a hold of that thing and yank it out of there. So let's check this out. During one of those pools, my aquarium rock broke. Oh well. It is now time to start splitting this stuff, and that stump is so large and thick I'm going to do it with a maul. A couple of these bottom rounds I use a maul on, and then I'm going to break out the log splitter. That stuff is horse stall mat, and I have a few sections of it, and I'm just sick of my maul getting stuck in the grass and mud every time I swing it, so I put a couple of those stall mats down to try to help with that issue. At this point, I'm getting pretty tired, and this chunk right here is just a nasty little piece. I mean, it's just got a big old knot wrapped around. I mean, you can see it's got a big branch coming off of it, and it is solid. So it's not going to split, and I think I'm just going to break out the chainsaw and rip this thing down into a few pieces because I am getting tired and I'm sick of dealing with it, and I'm ready to break out the log splitter.